keynote. This is the first open event of this ESRC seminar series, which is entitled Thinking the Yet to Be Thought. We did have a launch event in October, which had about 25, 26 people. So we've doubled or tripled that number, depending on how many latecomers arrive. And it's really, really lovely to see such a wide range of people here. And as we get to know each other through the afternoon, you'll see how different everyone is and what backgrounds we come from. My job is to tell you very briefly what the plan is for this afternoon, and then we're going to get straight on with the keynotes. So this whole session today is focused around the topic of pedagogy and curriculum. And we're starting off with our keynote lectures, where we have two speakers who've come from Denmark. We will introduce them and tell you a bit more about them just before they speak. But we're really pleased that we managed to get them here. And one of them came at very short notice because the advertised person had to drop out at the last minute. So you'll notice that there are a different name at the top there than the one that's on the poster. We also have a discussant, Diane Ray, who will do a job of kind of drawing together some of the themes from the two keynotes. We are hoping there will be time for some questions, but if there's not, please don't worry, because our keynotes will be staying with us all afternoon. They'll be joining in workshops, and at the end of the day, when we all come back together again, they'll still be with us. So there will be plenty of time to pick up on the themes from the keynote. We have 4 workshops. One workshop was a last-minute replacement because Professor Rachel Brooks from Surrey had to drop out on Monday of this week, and so we're very grateful for Sally Eves for stepping in and offering to do a workshop about maker spaces, hack spaces and Fab Labs. She gets the prize for having the best title. So if you are now looking at those workshops and thinking, oh, I wish I'd chosen a different one, or I'm not sure what workshop I'm on, it's not too late to change your mind or what have you. You get to choose 2 workshops. And when we finish the keynote session, we will lead you to the right places, because 2 of them are in a different building. We then have, at the end of the day, network discussion groups, where we want to start you doing some stuff together to build connections and to sustain something beyond the event today. Some of you have already been very helpful, and by filling in the sheet that we sent you in advance with a little picture and some information about you and what you're interested in. They are all up on the wall of the room where we had coffee. If you haven't filled one of those in, we do have some blanks, and we'd really like you to fill those in as well, so we get a sense of everybody. We'll do that at the end of the day, so we've got a way of moving forward. Got to do a bit of publicity and promotion. We do have a website and a Facebook page. Please continue to look at those. I know some of you have already. That's how you come across us. We've also got badges today, and I'm wearing one here, which we would like you to wear. But also, if you work with students, with children, young people or students, please take some badges, because we are trying to kind of promote the project wider. And at future events, we may have different freebies, but today it's badges. And at the next event, just to get a date for your diary, Friday 10th of July, it's in Newcastle. We have 2 keynote speakers already confirmed. One is Professor Wayne Al from Washington, the other Professor Michael Apple from Wisconsin. They're both confirmed as coming on that day. And on that day, we're also hoping that there will be workshops which include students in the running of them, which will be a little bit different to what we've done here. So that's what we're doing this afternoon. I'm going to hand straight over to my colleague here, Catherine, to introduce the first keynote speaker, unless anybody has any burning questions. If you need the loo, it may not be a burning question, but maybe a burning need, there's one just out here on the right. Please feel free to wander as you will. We do have video cameras which are videoing the keynote presentation, so that we're putting them on the website. Right, Catherine, over to you.
I'm Catherine Montgomery from the University of Hull. Max needs no introduction. She's
also
from the University of Hull. It's really great to be here this afternoon to welcome so many people from different universities across the country, but also to welcome our colleagues from Denmark. It really feels like we're sort of setting off with the seminar series now, and as Max says, this is the first open event. We had an earlier event in London where we started the project off, started the seminar series off, but this is our first open event, so it really does feel like things are starting to happen. And I think it's fitting that we have our colleagues coming from Denmark, because the Freedom to Learn project really started off with Max and I's joint and shared interest in education in Denmark. So it really does feel right that today we've got two very great keynote speakers from Denmark, one from school and one from university. So I'm going to introduce the first keynote speaker, and we're really grateful to Associate Professor Ernst Schraube for standing in for Martin there at the last moment. Ernst is also from Roskilde University, from the Department of Psychology and Education. I've had a sort of long-standing history of working with Roskilde University, which you're going to hear all about Roskilde University and what an interesting context that is. I started working with them in 2006, and that's really been very influential on my research interests and also on my focus in teaching too. It has really influenced my way of thinking about my own teaching. So that was really the main reason why Max and I wanted to invite Ernst, someone from Roskilde, to come along and talk to you. Ernst is German, and he went to work at Roskilde University 12 years ago. And I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's given you an interesting perspective, a kind of outsider's perspective on Roskilde University and on the way that they teach there. Ernst's research interests are in technology and learning, and he's interested in technological learning spaces and how learning happens in everyday life, if that's right. But he's going to tell you a lot more about that, and I'm going to get out of the way, and I want to introduce Ernst Schraube to you.
Thank you, Katrin, and thank you, Matt, for inviting me and for organizing this event. I'm very happy to be here. And I want to talk a bit and introduce you a bit to the educational model of our university, Roskilde University. Roskilde University is founded 40 years ago. 1972. It's situated close to Copenhagen in Denmark, near the old town Roskilde. It has around 10,000 students, and you can study most of the disciplines. It is an interdisciplinary university. So the first 2 years you are not located in any discipline. You are located into general fields. Either it's the natural sciences, the social sciences, the humanities, or what we call humanities and technological sciences, where we make a combination, where we bring informatics and other technological sciences together with the humanities, with philosophy, psychology, and so on. Students cannot study only one discipline. They have to combine. So after the first 2 years, where they often have no ideas about any discipline, only about certain themes and problems and issues, then they continue in usually two different disciplines. And they can combine nearly whatever they like. So maybe psychology with philosophy, communication, informatics, even biology, whatever they like. Now, the crucial idea of Roskilde University, the educational model, we have it from the beginning. So it survived, the university changed during the last 40 years, so in many areas. But the educational model, it survived, and it's pretty much the same during the 40 years. So, and we call it problem-oriented project learning. So, which is a short form that the students in their half of their time of studying is along projects together with other students, where they themselves decide about the topic, about the problem. So, and they do this over the whole semester in groups. That's half of the way of studying. And all the other learning environments of the university, they are there to support the students in their project work. So I will present you this model in more detail, just to give you an idea over the next half an hour. And I combine introducing you to this model and some central elements. So in connecting this to certain discussions in learning theory. So because from learning theory, how we understand learning has of course crucial influence how we structure our educational practices. So we have to, I try to combine that a bit. And I have to be a bit quick in some things. And there's if you want to go deeper, there's just a book published from our colleagues from our university where we describe the model, the Roskilde model, problem-oriented learning and project work. So you can go deeper here if you like. And there are more to read, and send me a message and I can send you more material. Now, I have a certain structure of my talk. I begin with the origins of the model. Then I talk a bit about the structure and some principles of project work. And then I talk about some challenges. When I want to begin with the origins. Now imagine 40 years ago, or more than 40 years ago, the end of the 60s, a certain education was hegemonic. So we call it the transfer model, or often it's called also the transmission model of learning. So the professor's talking, students are listening, and you learn that I transfer something from professor's head into your head. So the transfer of knowledge from a person to another, then you learn. So that was the hegemonic model during that time. And people became a bit questioning this model. So also in Denmark, not only in Denmark. And in Denmark, people, they read Dewey, they read Paulo Freire, they read Marx, many others. And inspired by this reading, they got an idea about first the limitations of this model and ideas how to do it differently. So and it became to a specific model at Roskilde University, and probably the student movement was also crucial that it could be realized in such a that a new university could be started with a totally new structure. So I think it helped a lot. Okay, and I will tell you a little bit more about this model now. Okay, they realized, and I think Freire was here quite important, that you have to differentiate between teaching and learning. And then you have to realize, and they realized, there's often a confusion between teaching and learning. That people talk about learning, but actually they talk about teaching. So they often people confuse teaching and learning. We call it now the teaching-learning short circuit. So you mix up teaching and learning, and then you talk about you learn and you mean what I teach. So against this model, the whole Roskilde model was trying to overcome these limitations of this model. The interesting thing is, this model is not gone. So also, everybody in educational studies argues against it and says we are further on. It's still in our heads. So it's in the heads of the students, of the colleagues, it's still present. That's why we have to realize that. Okay, and then the colleagues at Roskilde University, they realized learning doesn't, the subject of learning is not the teacher. The subject of learning are the learners. Learning and the learning activities relates to a learner. So you have to understand learning from the perspective of the learner. So otherwise you don't understand it. You have to learning activity is rooted on the side of the learner. Otherwise you don't understand it. So there was a shift. Oh, and then they realized, because learning happens, learning is not a transfer of knowledge from here into my brain, but the opposite. It's an activity of persons getting access to the world, discovering the world, understanding the world, developing skills to live in this world and understanding this world. That is learning. Learning is from the perspective and activity of the learning. And it requires, that was a crucial idea they had 40 years ago, that you have an influence on the learning activity. Not only a formal influence, what happens during the last 40 years. All universities today say we are democratic institutions, and the students also have to be represented in the councils and so on. Not only such influence on the formal structure of a university, but also on the content of learning. That was crucial. So real learning only can happen, that was the founding idea, if you also have the influence on what you learn and that you as a student decide on your own. 50% of the studying activity, learning activity of the students, all the project work, the students decide themselves about what they study and how they explore the problems they want to be engaged with. Okay, and that was the birth of the student-directed, problem-oriented, interdisciplinary project work in groups. The students work in groups. It means a fundamental shift. So, learning not understood as transfer, but learning and also how we theorize learning. It's from the standpoint of the learners, but also how we structure educational practice. We have to do it from the perspective of the learners. That is a challenge, and that's a challenge what Roskilde University tried to embody in their educational model from the beginning. Okay, I jump now to learning theory. You have a question? Just interrupt, fine.
Okay, so I come from Belgium,
Yes.
and social justice in my country is very important. And I agree with what you said. However, I'm always thinking about how to challenge the assumption that if students decide what they are learning, how do you reach a model where everyone learns equally in terms of the contents of learning? And it's something that has always been
Yes.
in my mind.
I understand. Yeah, good question. So, and I will talk a bit more about that. I will take that up. It is how to develop, the crucial element is how to develop problems. So what is a problem? How to develop it in groups together with others. I will talk about that. We have some thoughts about it. Okay, but I jump now quickly to learning theory. So, okay, this shift to understand learning and theorize learning from the perspective of the learners. So that's a line where I will talk now more, and also the practice, how educational practice from the perspective of the learners, plural. Learning is a social activity. Okay, and during the last 30 years, educational researchers realized that. So, and I have a quote from Jean Leif, I could take somebody else. She realized that really well. Questions about learning are almost always met by educational researchers with investigations of teaching. This disastrous shortcut equates learning with teaching. Leif suggests a reversal in perspective, so that the wider focus of research on learning shifts from transmitters, teachers or caregivers to learners, and an analysis of learners as subjects. So she's trying to follow exactly this line, but she doesn't go far with theorizing learning from the perspective of the learners. She has a situated, a participatory approach, but it could be, we try to think further on. Okay, now I continue a bit about theorizing learning. The crucial element, if you learn, there has to be a learning problem. So without a learning problem, you can say it's it's only a specific kind of learning happens. We differentiate between incidental and intentional learning. Incidental, incidental, Bourdieu calls it osmotic learning. We cannot avoid learning. All the time we learn something. If we just are in a room, we learn something. I know now here this room, but you can differentiate it to learning where you want to learn something, where there is in your everyday activity a certain dilemma. And learning actually is a detour. So you are confronted with a certain problem, and then you have to learn, you have to develop yourself, you have to go on, you have to broaden yourself. Learning is a detour. Starting with a certain problem. Problems initiate intentional learning processes. Therefore, problems are of crucial importance for learning. And I have a German psychologist actually wrote a good book about learning. Klaus Holzkamp, he died quite after he finished his book. Learning does not start by itself, he's saying, simply because I'm subjected to some demands from other third parties. My learning cannot be planned over my head by some instances responsible for that learning, such as teachers or school authorities. Subjecting me to learning demands does not in itself lead to acts of learning, since demands only become acts if I consciously can adopt them as a learning problem. And that in turn require that the very least that I realize where I really do have, that at the very least I have to realize where I really do have here something to learn. So he's also emphasizing without a learning problem which you have a certain idea, learning cannot happen. It initiates, problems initiate real learning. So that's why the starting point of our educational model are the problems. Problem-oriented project learning. It's not about the discipline that you learn about the discipline psychology when it emerged, why, what are important theories. That's secondary. The starting point of all learning are problems students experience today, which they choose themselves in contemporary society today. That's the starting point. And then the crucial question is, and I don't go so deep into that, maybe later. What is the problem? We have huge discussions about that, so it's not so easy. I have some thoughts about that. But what is the problem? We discuss a lot, and the students also discuss a lot. As soon as they begin their project, they think, what is really a problem? And the difficulty the students have is what you are mentioning. They are in a group. So they have to agree and discuss, overcome their prejudices, what is a problem, deepen ideas, where is really something worth to spend 4 or 5 months to explore in detail. So, but it helps that they are in a group, but it's also difficult. So, because you have to agree what we as a group define as a specific problem we now ought to explore. Okay, some say the problem is the solution. So I find that in Australia, in the museum. Okay, now I want to talk a bit how to work with these learning problems in project work. So, and what is the structure we have, the learning environment, helping the students doing their project. So, the first three, I would say, some crucial aspects. I could talk much more, but the interesting thing is the students do, in a certain way, research from the first semester. So they have these dilemmas, problems, and then they have to explore it and find a way how to do that. So, and this means they do research, so collaboratively. This makes it exciting, actually. So, and then our university is inter or transdisciplinary because problems today don't care about certain disciplines, so which are very arbitrary why they are in such a certain way. So we need an openness, a transdisciplinary way of thinking. That's crucial. So because as soon as you have a problem-oriented approach, the disciplines would hinder your development of knowledge and insight. So and then we have a principle, exemplarity, we call it. You know, our idea is if you go into one field, explore one problem, so you also can generalize to other things. So we hope that works. So because the whole idea builds on that, so that if you go into a certain field, that you can generalize, do projects in another field as well, but you also understand about other things. Okay, and now I tell you a little bit more about how we structure our learning environment at the university. And I have here a picture from the head of our Center for University Education, Søren Dupont. So, and you can see it's from a paper he wrote 2 years ago. And you can see project work is in the center. All other learning, the rest of the learning environment, other learning activities are around it, and the idea is that they support it. And I would say he actually forgot something should be here. I would say the most important thing is what we call the group formation. At the beginning of every semester, the first week are 3 days where 100 students of one house, where they come together and discuss with some colleagues. So, what are problems of today we want to engage and study? So, and the group formation, where they find groups about certain problems they want to explore, and a supervisor who knows hopefully something about this field or not. So, and the amazing thing is, after 3 days, where I thought this is chaotic, nothing will happen, we find a perfect solution. Students find themselves about exciting things. So we forgot that. That's very important, group formation. The next step is a problem definition seminar. After 2 weeks, we share 2 groups with the supervisor. Oh, I forgot. After the problem definition seminar, the groups are formed, and then a supervisor is allocated to each group. So, and half of my time as teaching at the university is for group supervision. So, I work with the students, and I meet with them whenever they have the need, every 1 or 2 weeks. So, and talk with them, or we talk together about their project.
What's the size of the group?
The groups are between 3 and 8. So usually 4, 5. But it's not allowed to be more than 8, and they shouldn't be less than 3. Then they need an exception. It's also possible sometimes if there's 2 who really want to go into something. Okay, after 2 weeks, 2 groups, maybe with similar topics, we share them, and there's a problem definition seminar where we have a discussion about the problem. Something, where we take up what you said, where we have a dialogue. What is a problem? How to really, we are so full of prejudice, and then just what they saw on the television is coming into the problem definition. So we need a critical dialogue, and we do this 2 groups together and 2 supervisors. So and then after 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we have midterm evaluation, where the groups again meet with supervisors, and where we discuss, where are you in your project, how is it going, what are dilemmas, and then at the end there are group exams and evaluation of the project, including grades, which I will say a little bit where some challenges are coming.
Sorry,
Yeah.
is it appropriate to ask what form of output the midterm evaluation takes? So from the student side, what do you usually have as an output?
They have to, we suggest, send 10, 15 pages,
Right.
so where you describe your problem, how you approach it, what kind of methodology you use, what kind of theories do you want to use, and what kind of, usually they do an empirical exploration, where do you want to develop your empirical material, and so on. So that there's a concept of and approach of the project that's clear. So often it's messy, but I think it's of crucial importance to have that, how the students help each other and discuss academic work with each other. That's what they learn in a productive way. So, and that they go deeper into their field, and that often the students realize from each other they are much smarter often than the supervisors, where their limits are and how to come further on and how to think in a productive way. Yep.
Sorry, I guess the question was also the fact that if it's a real world problem and you have an academic output, that's great. But by this time, I'm guessing students want to really go out and solve it, and they want to be a part of the eventual solution. And that can be a tough balance for a supervisor sometimes to say, hey, you know what, this is where it ends.
Yes, there are these tensions. What you are saying, yeah.
5 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes.
It's on the same point, just some clarification. So
Yeah.
when students create the problem, they don't have an input into designing the assessment that will be part of the evaluation, how far they've got with that.
Yeah.
They have an input into assessment as well? Or,
Yes.
and is it individual assessment or group?
Exactly. The last question is easy. We are group assessment. So we could convince our government. We had for a long time in Denmark group exams, but then right-wing government changed that. But now, since several years, we have a new government, and we could change it back to group exams, which helps a lot. So it was a catastrophe with singular exams. Okay, but then, besides group work, the students have half of the time also lectures and seminars, workshops, and they are created to help them to do their project work in a substantial way, to substantiate it, to deepen it. And there we have one course is about how to do project work and how to write the report. What could be a general structure of the report they have to write at the end. So so there are, and the lectures are about methodology, about theories in a certain field, and so on. General, I think the lectures should help them to substantiate their project work. On the other side, I think the lectures should open their horizon, so and engage them in critical ways of thinking and dealing with material. So with academic thinking. Now I talked about that, and then they have their final exams. I go a bit quickly about that. Now I turn 5 minutes.
Well, 3 now.
Yeah, I'm having it. I turn now to learning theory again, a little bit. So if you think learning from the perspective of the learners, so then you have the moment where learning really happens. It's where you go beyond what you already know. Then this becomes interesting. You want to know something, or you want to be able to do something which you cannot know. We call this affinitive learning. So, and the question is how this happens. That's the interesting thing of learning. So, and here we have to open up. Here we need dialogue. So we need conversation. We need contemplation. So we need different things. And I go quickly. One interesting thing is what we call the fluidity of learning and teaching. So I would say that's a crucial element of expanding, of going beyond. So, and I want to just give you a quick idea of what we mean with the fluidity of learning and teaching. Usually, learning and teaching is divided into functional positions. So here is a function, the learner has a function of is a student. So, and teacher is a professor. Both are in a certain function. They also correspond to certain work positions. And it's actually a reality at the universities and at schools. But if you go back historically, the original form of learning, so teaching and learning are not functional positions, but logical positions. They go back and forth within a person and between persons. So I learn from myself through reading, talking, thinking, and teach myself and with others. There's a fluidity. It goes all the time back and forth. That's where how learning and teaching actually happens, I would say. So, and what we try to do, I would say, is that in the learning spaces, the learning environment we try to make this possible. In the supervisor meetings with the groups, the supervisor and the students, we think into a certain field, and it shifts. I learn from the students a lot. So this fluidity we have at universities today, we have it in all universities actually. We have it at conferences like this. There's a fluidity. We learn and teach with each other. So and at the space. We have it in PhD education usually. This is fluidity. So we try to just bring it back to the first semester. So and create spaces where this is possible. Okay, a few challenges quickly.
Yeah.
The interesting thing first is that this model could survive 40 years smoothly without any problems. Students get jobs, no problem. Even Bologna process, no problem. We survived. I was in fear with Bologna. So it works so smoothly, but there are also challenges. One challenge is it requires time, and energy from teaching people, and we are at the universities more and more under pressure. So there's competition, much more competition, global competition about publication, research funding. There's huge amount of pressure. We have to develop research at our university, otherwise we are in fear that the whole department is getting closed. So even I take time for students, but I also have to limit it. I'm not happy with myself. I have to limit my time and also put my time for other things, for research, for writing, having peace for my own research. And this changed during the last 10 years actually. When I came to Roskilde University from Berlin, so from the Free University, as a Free University, the students were in the way, so they were disturbing. When I came to Roskilde University, I was totally surprised. It was, everybody shared the idea, we have the university for the students, that the students can flourish and develop this insight. So this changed during the last 10 years. We still have the idea, but we are also under pressure. There's a tension. So so here are tensions. There are more tensions with grading. Grading undermines the trust you need for the fluidity. It destroys the fluidity actually. And then my concern is also with the digitalization of learning relations, where also in Denmark, I know also in the UK, Danish universities, the government says you have to digitalize everything. So, and even some of the colleagues, they are happy about it. They say, why not all lectures, online lectures? Why not just taking it from the web, the most famous people, and only concentrate on project work? So we save money we can use for project work. But then I say, then we are back in the transfer model of learning. That you have here the smart experts just telling the truth. So, but we have this discussions, and I think here are huge challenges.